Under the blinding glare of the spotlight, the ring is a theater of war. Juliana, the veteran hardened by years of punches and scars, faces Rafaela, the young promise with eyes hungry for glory. "You're just a flash in the pan, girl," growls Juliana, her fists clenched. Rafaela smiles defiantly, "Then put out my fire if you can." The bell sounds and the clash begins, a clash of strength, pride, and secrets. Each punch carries a story, each dodge a weight. But in the heat of the fight, Juliana discovers that the lesson she wanted to teach may cost more than she is ready to pay. In the ring, no one comes out unscathed, and the truth always hits harder. Like the video and tell us which state you're watching from. I, Juliana, tried to teach a lesson to that arrogant young woman, Rafaela, but the ring had other plans for me. The gym reeked of old sweat and burnt rubber, the air dense with the hum of the crowd. The spotlight burned the back of my neck, and the ring leather creaked under my worn-out boots. I was 38 years old, 20 of them dedicated to this canvas square, where every punch was a confession and every bruise was a medal. Rafaela, 22 years old, danced in front of me, her hair tied in a ponytail that swayed like a challenge. "Ready to learn, girl?" My voice came out hoarse, sharp as I adjusted my gloves. My eyes measured her, thin but with defined muscles, moving as if the ring were hers. She laughed, a light sound that irritated my skin. "Learn? With you? Only if it's like not aging badly." The crowd roared and my chest tightened. It wasn't just the struggle, it was what it represented, the youth I no longer had, the promise I never was. I knew every corner of that gym. The cracks in the walls, the echo of the screams, the smell of liniment that hung like a ghost. But Rafaela? It was new, untouched by the defeats that shaped me. My fists trembled, not from fear but from something deeper, a need to prove that I was still the queen. The judge called us to the center and our eyes met. Hers shone with confidence, mine with memories. "No low blows," the referee warned, but I knew this wasn't about rules. It was about pride. When the bell sounded, the world shrank to the size of the ring. My heart beat in rhythm with my steps, and her every move was a mirror of what I once was. But I wasn't going to let a newbie erase me. Not today. The first punch came quickly, a jab from her that cut through the air. I turned away on instinct, feeling the wind brush my cheek. She was fast but I was precise. My counterattack hit her shoulder and she retreated in surprise. "Is that all?" I teased, but inside a voice whispered, "Be careful, Juliana. She's not who you think." The ring was a confessional, and every blow I threw at Rafaela carried the weight of years of regrets. My arms ached, not only from the effort, but from the invisible scars of old struggles. I was once like her, young, fearless, with the world at my feet. But boxing does not forgive. He gives you glory and robs you of everything in return. As I danced around her, dodging her jabs, my mind wandered to the past, to the night I lost everything. "You hit like an amateur," I yelled, landing an uppercut that sent her head tilting back. The crowd cheered, but Rafaela just smiled, wiping the sweat from her brow. "And you move like a relic," he retorted, throwing a hook that caught my flank. The pain exploded, but I swallowed the moan. She didn't know what I was capable of. Or did you? I remember my first big fight at the age of 20. The gymnasium was smaller, but the roar of the crowd was the same. I won the belt that night, but I also earned enmities. Coaches, sponsors, even my family, they all wanted a piece of me. When I fell years later, no one was there to lift me up. Rafaela didn't know that. To her, I was just the bitter veteran, the shadow she wanted to erase. His fists came fast now, a sequence of blows that tested my guard. I blocked it, but each impact reverberated through my bones. My eyes caught one detail, the tattoo on her forearm, a hawk with outstretched wings. Something about that bothered me, like a memory I couldn't reach. "Focus, Juliana," I muttered to myself, throwing a hook that she deflected with ease. The first round ended and we parted, panting. In my corner, my coach, Old Morrow, threw water in my face. "She's good, Ju. Don't underestimate it." I nodded, but my gaze was fixed on Rafaela. She laughed with her coach, confident as if she had already won. Something inside me burned. I was going to show her what real boxing was. Rafaela came back for the second round like a hurricane. His feet barely touched the canvas, and his punches came with a precision that caught me off guard. She was more than raw talent. There was strategy in every move. A jab hit my chin and the world spun for a moment. The crowd screamed and I tasted blood in my mouth. "Wake up, old woman," she sneered, her eyes shining with a mixture of amusement and contempt. I wasn't old. Not in the ring. Here I was eternal. I adjusted my guard and advanced, landing a hook on his abdomen. She grunted but did not back down. "Is that all you have?" she teased, launching a sequence that forced me against the ropes. The impact of the ropes against my back was familiar, almost comforting. I'd been cornered before. And I always did. But Rafaela was not like my old opponents. She struggled with a hunger that I recognized because I was once like that. Her every punch was a cry of affirmation. I am the future. And I, with my joints creaking and my breath shorter, was the past she wanted to bury. My eyes met hers, and for a moment, I saw something beyond arrogance. A shadow of doubt, perhaps? "Do you think you're the first to challenge me?" I growled, dodging a hook and hitting her face. The impact vibrated on my arm, but she just shook her head and laughed. "And you think it's the last one I'm going to take down?" His voice had a tone that disarmed me. It wasn't just provocation, it was something personal. The bell sounded, ending the round. In my corner, Mauro held my face with calloused hands. "She's studying you, Ju. He doesn't let himself be carried away by anger." I nodded, but the anger was already there, mixed with something I didn't want to name. As he looked at Rafaela, wiping the sweat with a towel, the falcon's tattoo shone in the light. And then, like an unexpected punch, the memory came. I had seen that falcon before. The third round began, and I was no longer just Juliana, the veteran. It was Juliana, the survivor, carrying a weight that Rafaela could not understand. Or maybe he could. The tattoo of the falcon wouldn't leave my head. Years ago, I trained a girl, Anna, who had the same design on her arm. She was my protégé, my chance for redemption. But I pushed it too far and it broke. He disappeared after a humiliating defeat. Guilt still haunted me. "You fight like you have something to prove," Rafaela said, dodging a jab of mine and landing my shoulder. The pain radiated, but I kept my face impassive. "And you talk like you know everything," I snapped, throwing an uppercut that she blocked. His eyes narrowed, and for a moment I saw Anna in them, the same determination, the same fire. But Anna never had this coldness. The gym seemed smaller now, the voices of the crowd mingling in a distant roar. My lungs were burning and sweat was running down my eyes, but I couldn't stop. Every punch I threw was for Anna, for me, for every fight I lost outside the ring. Rafaela, however, seemed tireless. Her blows were calculated, as if she knew exactly where I would fail. "Why are you so angry, Juliana?" she asked, her voice almost soft as she dodged a crusader. "This isn't just about the belt, is it?" His words hit me harder than his fists. She was digging, looking for weaknesses. I wanted to scream that she didn't know anything, but the doubt was already there, eroding my confidence. When the round was over, I barely heard the bell. Mauro pulled me to the corner, his voice urgent. "Ju, you're getting lost. Focus on her game, not yours." But I couldn't. As Rafaela sat in the opposite corner, laughing with her coach, the falcon's tattoo seemed to pulsate. It was impossible, but I needed to know. Who was she really? The fourth round brought a new tension. The air in the gym was heavy, as if everyone knew something bigger was at stake. My muscles were screaming for relief, but my mind was on fire. Rafaela was not just an adversary. She was a mirror, a reminder of everything I've ever lost. And that tattoo. I needed answers, but the ring was no place for questions. "Have you ever felt the canvas swallow you, girl?" I asked, throwing a jab that she deflected with ease. "Because I have." My voice trembled, not from weakness but from anger. Rafaela smiled, but there was something different now, a shadow in her eyes. "Do you think you're the only one who suffered, Juliana?" It hit a hook on my flank and I felt the air escape from my lungs. I stepped back, adjusting my guard. The ring felt like an oven, the heat of the spotlight mixed with my own sweat. Every move was an effort, but I couldn't give up. Not now. Not when Anna's memory was so vivid, mixed with Rafaela's face. "Who are you?" I muttered, more to myself than to her. But she listened. "Someone you should remember," she replied, her fists flying in a sequence that cornered me against the ropes. The crowd roared and I felt the weight of 1,000 looks. My arms blocked the worst, but each blow was a question. "What did you do, Juliana?" I wanted to scream, to deny, but the truth was there, in the tattooed falcon in her eyes. The round ended and I staggered to my corner. Mauro held my shoulders, his eyes worried. "What's happening to you, Ju? It looks like he's fighting a ghost." I didn't answer. My gaze was fixed on Rafaela, who was drinking water in the opposite corner, the tattoo shining like an accusation. I needed to know the truth, even if it hurt more than any punch. The fifth round began with an eerie silence. The crowd, once mad, seemed to hold their breath. I moved slower now, my reflexes tested by fatigue and doubt. Rafaela, on the other hand, seemed to grow by the second, her eyes fixed on me as if she could see through my soul. I was no longer fighting just for myself. I was fighting against the past. Why the hawk, Rafaela? I asked, my voice cutting through the air between one jab and another. She hesitated just for a moment, but it was enough to give me hope. I landed a hook on her shoulder and she stepped back, surprised. You have no right to ask, she replied, her voice low, almost a growl. But there was pain there, a pain I knew. I had already seen that tattoo on Anna, my protégé. She made it after her first victory, a symbol of freedom. But Anna never came back after that crushing defeat I forced her to face. I pushed her into a fight she wasn't ready for and she disappeared. Guilt has devoured me ever since. And now Rafaela was here with the same hawk, the same fire. Her punches came faster, harder, as if she wanted to punish me. You destroyed everything, Juliana, she said, landing an uppercut that made my vision blur. I blocked the next blow by instinct, but my mind was elsewhere. Did it destroy everything? The words echoed and I began to connect the dots. It was impossible, but what if? The bell sounded and I crawled into the corner. Mauro threw water in my face, his voice urgent. Ju, you're letting her into your head. React. But I couldn't. My eyes met Rafaela's and for the first time, I saw not only anger but hurt. She was not just an adversary. She was someone I already knew. The sixth round brought a cruel clarity. Each punch from Rafaela seemed to carry an accusation, and I was beginning to understand why. My arms trembled as I blocked her blows, but my mind was elsewhere. The night Anna left the gym crying, vowing never to return. I pushed her into a fight against a champion, thinking she needed to be tested. I was wrong. You're her daughter, aren't you? I asked, my voice almost swallowed by the roar of the crowd. Rafaela stopped, just for a second, her eyes wide. It was enough. I hit a hook on her chin and she staggered. But instead of fighting back, she just smiled, a sad smile that cut deeper than any punch. It took you a while to realize, she said. The gym seemed to disappear. It was just me and her, past and present colliding in the ring. Anna never told me about a daughter, but now everything made sense. The tattoo, the anger, the familiarity in her movements. Rafaela wasn't just here for the belt. She was here for revenge. By Anna. For everything I took from her. I didn't know, I muttered, dodging a crusader. My voice trembled and I hated it. You didn't care to know, she snapped, hitting my flank hard. The pain exploded, but it was the guilt that brought me down. I saw Anna in her every move and every look. And now, I was struggling with the consequences of my own mistakes. The round was over and I could barely get to my corner. Mauro was shouting something but I couldn't hear it. My eyes were fixed on Rafaela, who wiped the blood from her lip with a look that mixed hatred and determination. I needed to talk to her, explain, redeem myself. But the ring was no place for redemption. In the seventh round, I was no longer fighting Rafaela. I was fighting myself. Every punch I threw was hesitant, loaded with guilt. She, on the other hand, seemed stronger, as if the revelation had ignited something inside her. His fists flew with precision and I could barely keep up. The gym roared, but for me it was just background noise. You destroyed her, Juliana, Rafaela said, her voice cutting as she jabbed me in the face. The impact made me recoil and the taste of blood returned to my mouth. She was never the same after that fight. His words were punches, each one hitting a place I couldn't protect. I wanted to deny it, to say that it was not my fault, but the truth was heavier than any blow. I remember Anna's face after that defeat. His eyes, once full of fire, were empty. I told her to get up, to fight again, but she just shook her head and walked away. And now her daughter was here, collecting a debt that I didn't even know existed. I didn't want to. I started, but an uppercut from Rafaela silenced me. The ring seemed to shrink, the ropes cornering me like memories. I blocked the next blow, but my heart wasn't in the fight. You don't understand, I muttered, throwing a weak hook that she dodged with ease. Understand? She laughed bitterly. Do you think this is about understanding? It's about justice. When the gong sounded, I was panting not only from fatigue but from the weight of the truth. Mauro held my face, his eyes worried. Ju, you're giving yourself away. Fight, damn it. But how could I fight, knowing that every punch was a blow against Anna's daughter? Rafaela, in the opposite corner, stared at me with an intensity that made me shiver. She wasn't going to stop until she knocked me down. The eighth round was a blur of pain and despair. My arms felt like lead, and every movement was a battle against my own body. Rafaela, however, seemed tireless, her eyes shining with a determination that frightened me. She was no longer the young promise. I was the avenger and I was the target. The gym vibrated, but I only heard the sound of my own heart, beating out of rhythm. "You don't deserve this ring," she said, landing a hook that sent my head spinning. I staggered, but I remained standing, clinging to the ropes. "You took everything from her, and now you want glory?" His voice was poison, and each word cut deeper. I wanted to answer, but my mouth was dry, my mind in pieces. All I could do was block and survive. I saw Anna in her face, in the way she moved her shoulders, in the fierce sparkle in her eyes. But Anna never had this anger. Or did it, and I never saw it? Doubt consumed me, and my punches were weak, hesitant. Rafaela took advantage, launching a sequence that cornered me. "Finish me then," I murmured, almost begging. "If that's what you want." She hesitated, just for a moment, and I saw the crack in her armor. "It's not what I want," she said, her voice shaking for the first time. "It's what she deserves." The next punch hit my chin, and the world darkened for a second. I fell to my knees, the cold tarp against my hands. The crowd was screaming, but I could only hear the echo of her words. The judge started the count, but I stood up, trembling. It couldn't end like this. Not for me, but for Anna. I needed to fight, not only for the belt, but to prove that I wasn't the monster Rafaela thought. When the round was over, I barely reached my corner. Mara was pale. "Ju, you're finished? Do you want to stop?" I shook my head. Stopping was not an option. The 9th round began with a heavy silence. I knew I was on edge, my body begging for rest, my mind torn apart by guilt. But something inside me ignited. It wasn't pride, it wasn't anger, it wasn't a need for redemption. Rafaela could be Anna's daughter, but I wasn't the villain she imagined. Or was it? "You don't know everything," I said, my voice hoarse as I dodged a jab. She laughed, but it was an empty laugh. "I know enough," he snapped, tapping my shoulder. The pain was familiar, almost comforting. I moved forward, throwing a hook that caught his flank. She grunted, surprised, and for the first time, I saw uncertainty in her eyes. The ring was a battlefield, and I was fighting for more than victory. Every punch I threw was an attempt to reach Rafaela, to make her understand. "I loved your mother," I confessed, my voice almost a whisper. "I made a mistake, but I loved her." Rafaela stopped, her fists lowering for a moment. Their eyes widened, and I saw the raw pain in them. "Love it?" she spat, throwing an uppercut that I could barely block. "You destroyed it." The rage returned, stronger, and his blows were wild now, uncontrolled. I took advantage of it, hitting a hook that made his head hang. The crowd roared, but I felt no glory. Only emptiness. I didn't want to hurt her, but I needed her to listen. The round ended, and I crawled into the corner, exhausted. Mauro held my face, his voice firm. "You're coming back, Ju. But be careful, she's desperate now." I nodded, but my gaze was on Rafaela. She wiped the blood from her nose, her eyes fixed on me. It wasn't about the belt anymore. It was about the two of us and what was left of Anna between us. The 10th round was the point of no return. My muscles screamed, my breath was a thread, but I felt alive. The ring was my world, and Rafaela, my opponent, was also my redemption. I couldn't change the past, but I could fight for the present. His eyes met mine, and for the first time I saw something but hatred, a question, perhaps a hope. "You don't understand, Rafaela," he said, dodging a crusader. "I never meant to hurt your mother." My voice trembled, but I kept going, throwing a jab that she blocked. "I pushed her because I believed in her." Rafaela hesitated, and I saw the doubt grow. "You lied to her," she screamed, hitting my chest. The impact made me retreat, but I kept my eyes on hers. The gym seemed to pulsate with each blow. The crowd was on its feet, screaming, but for me it was just me and her. Each punch we exchanged was a conversation, a confrontation of truths. I hit, she fought back, and the ring trembled with our fury. But there was something new now, a connection, as if we were finally seeing each other. "She loved you, you know?" Rafaela said, her voice broken as she threw a hook. "She spoke of you as if you were a legend." The words hit me harder than any punch. I stopped, my fists down, and she took advantage, hitting my chin. I fell against the ropes, the world spinning. But I couldn't give up. Not now. The bell rang, and I clung to the ropes, panting. Mauro ran to me, his voice urgent. "Ju, you're almost there. Just one more round." But I wasn't thinking about the belt. I was thinking about Anna, Rafaela, everything I needed to fix. In the opposite corner, Rafaela stared at me, her eyes teary. She was also fighting more than I was. The 11th round started with a different energy. The air was electric, as if the ring itself knew the end was near. My arms barely obeyed, but my heart pounded, fueled by something greater than victory. Rafaela advanced, her fists fast, but there was hesitation in her movements. She was also tired, not only of her body but of her soul. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, blocking a jab and landing his shoulder. Why didn't I tell you who you were? My voice was a plea and I saw something change in her eyes. Because you didn't deserve to know, she replied, but her voice trembled. She threw a hook, but it was weak, almost as if she didn't want to hit. I knew we were on the edge. The gymnasium roared, but the sound was distant, like an echo. Each punch we exchanged was a farewell, hers from anger, from me from guilt. I'm sorry, Rafaela, she said, my voice almost a whisper as she threw an uppercut. She turned away, but her eyes were teary. Too late, she muttered, hitting my flank. The pain was unbearable, but I kept going. Not out of pride, but for Anna. By Rafaela. For me. I ended up landing a perfect hook and Rafaela staggered, falling to her knees. The crowd exploded, but I didn't feel victory. I ran to her, ignoring the judge, and held her face. I didn't know, I muttered, tears flowing. I swear I didn't know. She looked at me, her face stained with blood and tears. She died because of you, she said, her voice broken. But I'm not her. The gong sounded, but neither of us moved. The ring, for a moment, was ours alone, a space where past and present finally met. The last round wasn't about punches. It was about truths. When the gong sounded, Rafaela and I moved slowly, our bodies exhausted, our souls exposed. The gym was ecstatic, but for us, it was as if the world had stopped. Each blow was hesitant, as if none of us really wanted to win. I saw Anna in her eyes, but I also saw Rafaela, a woman who carried her own strength, her own story. I can't change what I did, he said, dodging a weak jab. But I can fight for you. My voice was firm despite the tears. Rafaela stopped, her fists down, and for the first time, I saw something but anger. You don't understand, Juliana, she said, her voice soft. I don't want your pity. I want my mother back. The punch came quickly, an uppercut that hit my chin. I felt the cold tarp against my back. The judge started the count, but I couldn't listen. My eyes were fixed on Rafaela, who trembled, tears streaming down her face. Get up, she whispered, almost begging. Get up, Juliana. And I got up, not for me but for her. I moved forward, my fists weak but my heart full. I hit a hook and she fell, her knees hitting the canvas. The crowd roared, but I ran to her, ignoring the judge, the belt, everything. I held her shoulders, our faces inches from each other. You're stronger than I've ever been, I muttered. And she'd be proud. Rafaela looked at me, her eyes teary, and then fell into my arms, sobbing. The final gong sounded, but there were no winners. The crowd fell silent, and the ring, for the first time, seemed sacred. I learned the worst lesson. Guilt is not erased with punches but with truths. And Rafaela, the young promise, taught me that strength is not in victory, but in facing the past. Together we left the ring not as opponents but as survivors.